An airport worker gets a manic episode and starts robbing banks to keep distracted. The film revolves around a lonely man named Joseph, who works at the London airport. Joseph is always zoned out during work and alone outside work. One day, he faces a strange man at work who says nonsensical things about life having no meaning. The encounter adds up to his mental health deterioration, which makes things worse for Joseph. He gradually loses control of his mind and goes to extreme lengths to keep him distracted by robbing banks and crashing into random places. Strap in, movie enthusiasts, it's recap time. Today we are going to recap a British thriller film called Surge from the year 2020. So let's start. The film opens with our lead, Joseph, showing up to the London airport as a security worker. While checking people who are to board flights, Joseph's metal detector detects something odd in an old man, so he takes him for a private search. Later, Joseph is seen eating alone among his colleagues during break time. He vigorously bites his fork as if he's about to eat the fork along with his food, but he manages to gain control and stop the biting. He takes the train home after completing his shift. Right before his apartment's gate, his neighbor has parked his bike and is continuously revving its engine. Joseph hesitantly passes by him and goes to his place. He eats his food in front of the TV and falls asleep on the couch. The next day, he repeats the same routine, but the only odd thing that happens is an encounter with a strange man at work. While checking people before they board their flights, Joseph comes across an old man who acts surprised to see Joseph. He tries to put his hands on his shoulders, but Joseph simultaneously tries dodging it, which grabs his colleague's attention. The man tells Joseph some nonsensical things about the cosmos and this life coming to an end very soon, which ends up affecting Joseph mentally. He tells Joseph to follow him after a minute, and he walks away. The security workers find the man odd, so they run after him and catch him. The man keeps screaming in Joseph's direction to come for him, but Joseph stays quiet. That night, he goes back to the locker room to change his uniform and silently experiences a mental breakdown. The next day, he takes the train to work, but gets off at the next station. He walks outside the station and sits in his father's car, who has shown up to pick him up. He asks about his arrival via the train, but Joseph claims he's missed the train. His father carelessly tries to get on the road and ends up hitting a man's leg. The man tries to create a scene of it, but the father curses everyone and speeds away from the situation. When they arrive at their place, the father drops Joseph at the doorstep and goes to park elsewhere due to the accident situation. Joseph's old mother receives him at the door and takes him in. Inside, the father shows up and starts moving out the old washing machine and bringing in the new one. Joseph tries helping the old man lift the heavy box, but the arrogant father coldly tells him to stay away while he does all the lifting. Later, the family has a very silent lunch with zero discussions or conversations. The mother picks up the dishes after they're done eating and takes them to the kitchen. Joseph goes after her in the kitchen to get some water and catches her secretly lighting up a cake for his surprise birthday. She becomes emotional and upset to have the surprise spoiled, so she tells Joseph to go back and pretend he saw nothing in a scolding manner. She brings the cake outside to the table and cuts slices for everyone. There, a weird tendency to bite the glass comes to Joseph's mind. He has trouble controlling himself, so he ends up biting the glass in front of his parents and injuring the inside of his mouth. While the mother creates panic, Joseph runs upstairs in the bathroom. The parents go after him and try to see what he's going through, but Joseph locks the door. He takes a moment to look himself in the mirror and walks out of the bathroom without cleaning himself. He runs out of his parents' place without an explanation and walks his way home. Upon his arrival, he sees his neighbor blocking his way with his bike again. He approaches the neighbor and tries to ask what his problem is. When the neighbor tries to act badass, Joseph curses at him for revving the bike's engine all night. When he walks to his home, the neighbor purposefully starts revving the engine, which causes Joseph's mental deterioration. He takes out an already prepped meal from the fridge and starts poking it with a fork energetically instead of eating it. He then goes to the bathroom and takes a look at his punctured lip from the inside for a long time. The next morning, he puts on his uniform and leaves for work. On his train journey, he does weird facial movements and constantly tongues his inner lip injury. He catches a little girl touching the fur of another lady sitting beside her, so he does the same thing. He touches the lady's fur coat without her knowing, and also sniffs it. He quickly controls himself before something worse happens and gets off the train. When he reaches work, he asks his colleague Scott about another colleague, Lily, who appears to be missing. Scott says that she's sick and is on leave. Joseph keeps tonguing the inside of his lip with itch and finds out a speck of glass from his wound. Later, One of the security guys stops an old woman and makes her pick between one of the two bags she has since she's exceeding the weight limit. The old woman gets puzzled and starts crying, which grabs Joseph's attention. He shows up and starts going through the old woman's stuff in the bag. He sprays one of her perfumes and starts liking it. He gives back the perfume and lets her take both bags, which pisses off his colleagues. He tweaks and does weird things with his face, which grabs his colleagues' attention. When a random passenger hands Joseph a water bottle and asks him to throw it in the bin, Joseph takes a sip from that bottle and spits it out in the air. They immediately call the manager and have her talk to Joseph. When they calmly try to take him back and have a look at what he's going through, he runs away and shows up outside Lily's apartment building. The sick Lily gets surprised to have Joseph outside her place, so she lets him in. Inside, Joseph looks around her room and asks her to show the TV, which he earlier talked about not getting attached to her laptop. As his body starts to spasm, he looks at the TV and tells Lily it doesn't have a cable to attach it to the laptop. He nicks out to quickly grab the cable from the nearest store. When he tries to pay for the cable at the cash register, his card starts declining repetitively. The shop owner suggests walking a few blocks ahead and withdrawing money from his card via the ATM method. He leaves the cable and goes to the ATM to withdraw some cash, but the machine sucks in his card and declines to withdraw. He insists on opening the machine, but the owner tells him to go to his bank to address the issue. When he goes to the nearest bank and addresses his issue, the lady at the front tells Joseph to show some ID first. Joseph shows her the rail card, but the woman smiles and insists on seeing his passport or driving license instead. He doesn't have any real ID on him, so he walks out. His body spasms on the road and he has a mental collapse. He walks back into the bank and writes a threat note. He passes that note to the lady at the cash register, which demands giving Joseph all the cash stored in her cash register. He puts all of the cash inside his jacket and runs out. He finally reaches the cable store and buys the cable for Lily. He runs back into the shop and buys a hat for a disguise. He then shows up at Lily's place and finally connects her TV with the laptop, which makes Lily happy. She gets awkward when she catches Joseph acting weirdly. Joseph asks Lily for a drink, so she takes him to the kitchen and pours him a glass of soda. He chugs it down and initiates kissing her. This leads to getting intimate, during which Joseph laughs and loudly grunts. Once they're finished, Lily goes back into her room, which allows Joseph to take out the cash and hide it in one of the kitchen's cabinets. Now fully out of control, Joseph takes the train back to his part of town. Throughout the entire journey, his facial and arm muscles spasm and make him do weird faces. He walks on the street, grooves to a beat he hears, and goes straight into another bank. He writes the same threat note and gets the man at the cash register to pay him all the cash. This time, he gets the money in a black bag and runs away. Hearing the police sirens wailing, he runs into an alley and throws the cash bag on the street. This causes a red-colored bomb to flare up and turn the cash into a red color inside the bag. He throws some red stacks on the road and runs away. He checks himself into a hotel, where he ends up ransacking the entire booked room. Following this, he crashes someone's wedding function in the hotel and starts eating some bread, picked from an attendee's table. He hears the groom's best man revealing all the horrible things about the couple in his toast, so he walks to him and tries to pick a fight with him. He says something in his ears, which makes the best man redo his toast, this time a nice one. He dances at the wedding all night and walks home later. When he reaches home, the neighbor is already looking for him, claiming that the cops have come to his place looking for him. Joseph ends up stealing the neighbor's bike and running away. As he's enjoying his freedom on the bike, he gets distracted and gets hit by a car. Wounded on the road, he gets up and looks over at an old woman sitting in the car, worrying for him. He cripple walks up to her, gets her out of the car, and hugs her to let her know everything is fine. The man who hit Joseph with his car finds Joseph touching his old mother offensive, so he throws a punch at him. Joseph retaliates and beats the man for no apparent reason. When he hears the police sirens nearby, he ends the fight with a hug and leaves while laughing, which stuns the man. He finally reaches his parents' house, takes off his clothes, and sleeps in his old room. In the morning, his mother finds him sleeping with a bruised face, so she starts crying while lying under his feet. The scene cuts to his awkward conversation with his mother, who tries to pin the blame for his condition on her, but his father comes and says some harsh stuff to him. He claims that he's ruined his parents' lives, knowing that the cops are looking for him. He doesn't hold back and goes to call the cops. He has a last laugh with his mother and walks out. He ends up on the streets, where he buys some fruit and amusingly watches a group of Indian girls doing their traditional dances. He decides to rob another bank, so he goes to one and shows them the threat note. He receives the cash, and as he's about to leave, the automatic doors close, indicating that the bank had already anticipated such a robbery. The film ends with Joseph finding his rapture while sitting on the bank floor and watching the Indian girls do their dance while waiting for the cops. Hope you liked the story recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Thank you for being a part of Black's Movie Recaps. If these tales of mystery and intrigue sent shivers down your spine, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Black's Movie Recap for more bone-chilling narratives. Stay tuned, and until next time, stay captivated.